Hello and welcome to the new episode of Web Technology video series. I hope you liked the previous one. In this video, I'll discuss the parts of URL. URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator, that is the global and unique address of the resource on the web. Such resources can be static or dynamic pages, images, audio-video files, CSS documents, script files, etc. URL is one of the important part of the web that is used by browsers to retrieve any published resources. A URL can also be called the Uniform Resource Identifier or URI. In general, the URL can be understood as a website address. Most of the web browsers display the URL of a page in an address bar. A typical URL follows the form as shown on the screen. In that URL, HTTP indicates a protocol, www.kcc.edu.np represents a hostname or domain name, and contact.html is the file name. Let's discuss those in detail. The first part of the URL is a protocol identifier and it indicates which protocol to use, mostly HTTP, HTTPS or FTP. The second part is called a resource name and it specifies the domain name where the resource is located. The protocol identifier and the resource name are separated by a colon and two forward slashes. For example, the three URLs shown on the screen points to different web resources. The first specifies a PDF file that should be fetched from kcc.edu.np using the FTP protocol. The second specifies a web page of kcc.edu.np that should be fetched using the HTTP protocol. And the third one fetches the homepage of the domain nobilbank.com using HTTPS protocol. Let me explain what a protocol is. If two people are from the different parts of the world and if they use their own language for communication, it won't happen. They need to use same language understood by both of them. A similar analogy works with networking devices as well. A network protocol is a set of rules which determines the data transmission mechanism between different devices in the network. Those set of rules are well agreed by the communicating devices. Protocol allows connecting devices to format, transmit and receive data with each other regardless of any differences in their internal system design. The role of protocol is equally important for LAN as well as WAN. They could not perform communication without the use of proper network protocols. Network protocols are created according to industry standard by various networking or information technology organizations. There are various groups which define and publish different network protocols such as the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers IEEE, the Internet Engineering Task Force IETF, the International Organization for Standardization ISO, the International Telecommunications Union ITU, and the World Wide Web Consortium W3C. Several protocols are used during the communication on www, like HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, an internet-based protocol for sending and receiving web pages, HTTPS, secure version of Hypertext Transfer Protocol, FTP, File Transfer Protocol, a protocol that is used to transfer and manipulate files on the internet, DNS, Domain Name System, translate IP address into domain names and vice versa, IMAP, POP3 and SMTP, protocols associated with email messages on the internet. Let's continue our discussion in the parts of URL. Next is www. We already discussed www in the previous video. In the case of URL, www used mostly as a prefix before the domain name. www is the set of linked hypertext documents that can be viewed on web browsers. Next is domain name. In simple analogy, if you consider a website as a house, then domain name will be its address. Our domain name is used for finding and identifying computers on the internet. Computers uses IP addresses which are a series of numbers that looks like 66.249.68.64. Can you remember a similar sequence of numbers for hundreds of sites you browse? No will be the obvious answer unless you are a memory king. Because of this, domain names were developed and used to identify entities on the internet rather than those numbers, which are also called IP addresses. A domain name can be any combination of letters and numbers, and it can be used in combination with the various domain extensions such as .com, .org, .net, etc. The domain name must be registered before you can use it, and every domain name is unique. Let's discuss about domain extension. Domain names are available in many different extensions. The most popular one is .com. There are many other options like .org, .net, .me, .info, .edu, .mil and many more. Let's see different types of domain names available. Top level domain, also called TLD. Top level domain is a generic domain extension that is listed at the highest level in the domain name system. There are hundreds of TLDs such as .com, .org, .net, .biz, .club, .info, .agency, etc. And the most popular ones are .com, .org and .net. The next is country code top level domain, also called CCTLD. Country code top level domain are country specific domain names which end with country code extensions like .np for Nepal, .uk for the United Kingdom, .de for Germany, .ts for Thailand, .cn for China, .in for India, etc. They are used by websites that want to target audience in a specific country. Country-specific TLDs are administered by the entities of the specific country. For Nepal, Mercantile Communications is the .np CCTLD manager delegated by IANA. The next is sponsored top-level domain, also called STLD. Sponsored top-level domain is a category of TLDs that has a sponsor representing a specific community served by the domain extension. The communities involved are based on ethnic, geographical, professional, technical or other theme concepts. They are proposed by private organizations that establish and enforce rules restricting the eligibility of registrants to use the TLD. For example, the .aero TLD is sponsored by SITA, a multinational air transport communication and information technology company providing IT and telecommunications services to about 90% of the world's airlines business. Another example can be .edu for education related organizations sponsored by EduCause, a non-profit organization in the United States which aims to advance higher education through the use of IT. Similarly, .gov for the United States government, sponsored by General Service Administration of the USA, etc. If you create a DNS hierarchy of a website address, for example drive.google.com, .com remains at the top, Google in the second level and Drive in the third level, which is also a subdomain. Let's talk about domain registration. Domains are sold by registrars. There is no single registrar that rules over all domains. These registrars can charge some amount for a domain and each registrar has to pay per domain fee to the appropriate registry in which the domain is being registered. ICANN has contracts with each of these registries and runs an accreditation system for registrars. This system of checks and balance provides a stable domain name environment. ICANN, short for Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, is a non-profit organization that was established in the United States in 1998 to help maintain the security of the Internet and allow it to be usable by all. Anytime you register a domain on the Internet, you go through a domain name registrar who pays a fee to ICANN to register your domain as a part of the domain registration process. Until 2016, ICANN operated under contracts from the United States National Telecommunication and Information Administration, but after 2016, it is formally independent of the US government. Under a different name, the Internet Assigned Number Authority or IANA, ICANN also maintains a registry that contains the root DNS database and various other data regarding Internet protocol and number assignments. You can register the domain name you want from the domain name registrar. Domain.com, Bluehost, HostGator, Namecheap, GoDaddy, etc. are most popular registrars. To register the country code top level domains of Nepal, you can visit register.com.np and follow the mentioned procedure. For eligible persons or organizations, the NP domain is freely registered for unlimited period. To register the domain, you need to mention at least 2 name server addresses, mostly known as NS1 and NS2. A lot of marketable and generic domain names have already been registered. They are valued in the millions and are also called high value domains. A subdomain is a domain that is a part of main domain. Subdomains are created to organize and logically separate a website into different sections. You can create multiple subdomains of your main domain, for example, exhibit.kcc.edu.np. In this example, exhibit is the subdomain of kcc.edu.np. You can use the text of your choice as a name of subdomain, but I recommend to choose the best keyword so that it will perfectly represent the section. IP address stands for Internet Protocol Address. It is a unique identifier number that is associated with a specific device on a network. When connected to the network, the IP address allows the devices to send and receive information. There are two standards for IP addresses: IP version 4, known as IPv4, and IP version 6, known as IPv6. All devices with IP addresses have an IPv4 address, and network infrastructure is slowly increasing the use of new IPv6. IPv4 uses 32 binary bits to create a single unique address on the network. An IPv4 address is expressed by 4 decimal numbers separated by dots. Each decimal number representation ranges from 0 to 255. For example, 216.27.61.137. IPv6 uses 128 binary bits to create a single unique address on the network. An IPv6 address is expressed by 8 groups of hexadecimal numbers separated by colons as shown in the screen. The value in each group ranges from 0 to FFFF. IPv4 contains 2 to the power 32 addresses and IPv6 contains 2 to the power 128 addresses. A port number is the logical address of each application that uses a network to communicate. A port number uniquely identifies a network-based application. Each application is allocated a 16-bit integer port number. A port number is the means through which a specific message is identified when it's forwarded to the server. Depending upon the service type, it will either be associated with transmission control protocol or user datagram protocol. For example, a web client sends requests to a web server using HTTP or HTTPS protocol. In order to pass the request to the web server, the software layer of transmission control protocol in your computer identifies the port number as 80 or 443, which are the default ports for HTTP and HTTPS. At the web server end, the TCP layer will read the port number of the request and forward a request to the HTTP server. Some services have well-known permanent port numbers. For example, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol HTTP uses port number 80, HTTPS uses port number 443, DNS uses port number 53. If a web server uses default port, you don't need to mention the port number in the URL. If the port number is changed, it must be mentioned on the address following the proper format. That is, keep a colon after web address and place the port number. Then the request will be sent to the manually specified port number. The well-known ports cover the range of possible port numbers from 0 through 1023. The registered ports are numbered from 1024 through 49151. The remaining ports, referred to as dynamic ports or private ports, are numbered from 49152 through 65535, which can be used by any applications. Thanks for your time till the end. If you have any confusions regarding the URL, please mention it in the comments. See you in the next video.